Joining us now to discuss the war in Iran and Operation Epic Fury, Robert Wilkie is the former Undersecretary of Defense and former Secretary of Veterans Affairs. Good morning to you, sir. Appreciate your joining us. Mr. Secretary, your reaction to that report from Jody Cohen about the IRGC and the Hezbollah joint attack. We are seeing more and more of these as the days unfold.
Well, I hope this is the last throes of these tyrannical forces. What we can't lose sight of, particularly now that oil prices are going up and we see these attacks, particularly across the region, is that we still have a lot of work to do. You know, in my time as undersecretary and also as an Air Force officer, the plans for a strategic air campaign against Iran stretch over weeks at a time. And I still think that we have many weeks left before we eliminate almost all of these threats. I mean, we still have a lot of work to do in the Straits of Hormuz and the Persian Gulf. So these attacks need to keep coming and really finally cripple and put this regime out of business.
Absolutely. And here's Admiral Brad Cooper, commander of the United States Central Command, speaking about recent U.S. military actions in Iran.
To date, we have struck more than 5,500 targets inside Iran, including more than 60 ships, using a variety of precision weapon systems. Just yesterday, we had strike waves nearly every hour from different locations and directions going into Iran. We also took out the last of 4 Soleimani-class warships. That's an entire class of Iranian ships now out of the fight.
This as President Trump now saying there is practically nothing left to target in Iran. What's your assessment?
Well, I think as an Air Force man, I think there still is, and I think we really haven't unleashed what I call the shaking power of the United States Air Force. That's the B-52s, the B-2s, and the B-1s, which are moving into place in the region and allied air bases across Europe and also in the Middle East. So he's very good at making the Iranians think something other than what he says will happen. And I do think that there's a lot more to come here because they're still able to launch these attacks, and there's still elements of the regime command and control in place. People like Larijani and the new Ayatollah, who I don't think will probably be long for this world.
Yeah, there hasn't been many sightings of him, if at all, that we've seen. But after President Trump announced he will release oil from the Strategic Petroleum Reserve, an Iranian spokesperson responded with this warning.
You must understand that you will not be able to artificially lower the price of oil and energy. With the expansion of war in the region, we have announced that you should prepare for $200 per barrel.
Well, Mr. Secretary, it's clear that the Iranians are latching on to the narrative that we're seeing here in the United States about affordability, trying to instill fear in the American public going forward. What do you make of what we're hearing out of Iran?
Well, that's typical propaganda. If you remember, during the Iraq War, we had Baghdad Bob talking about the victory of Saddam Hussein while an Abrams tank was parked right behind him with its barrel aimed at him. So I don't count much for that. But what I do know that China and Russia and North Korea are watching is whether the West in general will panic as a result of higher oil prices, which would in their minds, cement their understanding of the West as narcissistic, only caring about short-term luxuries and oil prices and gasoline prices, things for the car. So that's why this thing needs to be carried through to final victory, because then Trump will have completely changed the global landscape, and I think our enemies will be on their back foot.
On that note, President Trump also indicated the war could be nearing an end.
They are pretty much at the end of the line. Doesn't mean we're going to end it immediately, but they've got no Navy, they've got no Air Force, they've got no anti-air traffic, anything. They have no systems of control. We're just riding free range over that country.
Now, Israeli officials say that even if the war ends, there is no certainty the government in Iran will fall. Could you break that down in terms of what it means, as well as what are the next steps to instill a competent and non-threatening government?
Well, first of all, we need to continue. And the president said that in the middle of his remarks, that this thing's still not over. We have a lot of targets left out there. So what we are looking at is sort of the signs that we saw when the Shah fell. One of the reasons the Shah fell was that security services stopped firing on the young people of Iran. That's exactly what I'm looking for, because there are tens of thousands of people who are ready to take the streets and go after this regime once the instruments of terror are degraded to the point where the average citizen is in a position to take back his country. The other thing that we're seeing non-Persian elements who've been oppressed by this regime beginning to move, particularly the Kurds, who have substantial forces in the northern sections of Iran, who would like nothing better than to see the end of the Ayatollahs. So that's what I'm looking for, is that people going into the streets and finally saying enough. I mean, remember, this regime in the 3 months prior to the attacks by the U.S. and Israel killed more of their own citizens than the U.S. lost in the entire Korean War. That's the kind of savagery that these people will inflict on their own people. And of course, they want to inflict on the rest of the world.
Yeah. Well, a new report is causing a lot of concern here. We're hearing the FBI is warning about possible Iranian drone attacks in California. This comes as President Trump addressed the possibility of Iranian sleeper cells operating here in the United States.
Iran sleeper cells there could be inside the U.S. right now.
I have been, and a lot of people came in through Biden with this stupid open border. But we know where most of them are. We've got our eye on all of them.
Secretary Wilkie, talk to us a little bit about what we can expect with this new warning, which is very scary. Everyone was talking about it yesterday, today. Is this really a credible threat here that they could potentially attack California with drones? Do they have that capability?
Well, yes, but drones are so commonplace now that anyone, particularly lone wolves, can try to alter them so that they carry some sort of explosive. You can find that on the internet. But remember, just a few years ago, it was the Iranians who were funding the unrest in our major campuses in the Northeast. That was Iranian money that was funneled through Venezuelan banks. Remember, one of the reasons Maduro was taken out by President Trump was that Maduro was giving diplomatic cover to thousands of Iranian killers to disperse them across the globe. Iranians and Hezbollah fighters. He was giving them passports, which allowed them to travel freely. So yes, I do think that there's an issue. What I would look for is to protect what I would call soft targets, particularly Jewish community centers, synagogues. That's the kind of terror that this Iranian regime will try to inflict on people. And those are the areas that I think we need to protect vigilantly.
Thanks so much, Secretary Robert Wilkie.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Information. Truth is freedom. Is Newsmax. It's real news for real people.